As someone that knows Lavanya as a close friend, I definitely learned some things in her presentation that I did not know about her before. So yeah, that was definitely a really deep presentation, so congrats to you. But my presentation. So a lot of people like stories, because in my presentation, I'm going to be telling you about this time I ran a half marathon, and my bib is right here, and how I nearly didn't finish it, and how it led me to figure out a new definition of what success really means to me. So the half marathon I competed in is called Scotia Bank Calgary Marathon. And there are actually a couple levels. So there's the 5-kilometer run, the 10-kilometer run, half marathon, which is 21.1 kilometers, and there's the full marathon, which is the 42.2 kilometers, and there's the very adventurous one, which is 50 kilometers, called the ultra marathon. Now, me, my brother, and my dad went to do the half marathon since we weren't going to be too adventurous, and we would probably not make it for sure in a full marathon or even ultra marathon. So this event is one that is hosted annually in the city of Calgary, and they do it for some fundraising thing. I think this year they raised around $300,000 for cancer research. I'm not sure if it's really cancer research, but it was for research of something. So yeah, there were a lot of people, and it was definitely a really awesome event. And here are the results. There were 8 people in my age category, which was male, 15 to 19 years of age. As you can see, I am dead last. 8 out of 8. And in my gender, I was placed 569 out of 599. So I didn't do too well in this half marathon. And my time was 2 hours and 41 minutes. And the average time for a person running a half marathon my age is actually around 2 hours. So I didn't do too good. And here's my younger brother, Cheney Cai, and he got 3 out of 8 in my division, and he finished an hour before me. So assuming we were running at a constant speed, by the time I was halfway done, he already finished the race. So yeah. You're probably asking yourself, what happened? You cannot be this bad at running, can you? Well, the answer to that question is yes, you can be that bad at running, because I am an example of that right here. So yeah, my performance was subpar, but what happened? What happened in this race for me to get such a horrible time that basically someone walking the whole race could have got? Well, the story begins in spring of 2021, which is a year before this marathon, or almost a year. And over the pandemic in 2020 and 2021, my brothers, so I have 2 brothers, I have one older and one younger, they like to run. And sometimes when they run, I tag along. So they go for their usual 2K run, 3K run, 5K run, 10K run, and they'd be like, hey, Cheney, you should come along. And I go along, and then I'm matching the pace for a kilometer, and then I start wheezing, and then my legs start cramping, and then I just can't go anymore. So 1 kilometer is like a huge achievement for me already. And I got fed up with how unfit I was. Because my brothers would just ditch me, they just keep running, they wouldn't stop for me. And then I was like, okay, something's got to change. So I set a goal for myself. Get better at running. Be a little bit faster, at least finish a 2K. So I got this running app called Strava to track my runs. And this is my first ever recorded run. It was a casual 2-kilometer run. And I was running at a pace of around 6 minutes and 6 seconds per kilometer. And that is pretty slow. And at this time, I could barely even finish this 2-kilometer run. I had a run, walk. It was pretty embarrassing. But my goal of getting better at running paid off. Within the next 5 months, from April to September, I trained pretty rigorously. So there was this 2-week period in May where I actually ran every single day. And here's my results. 5 months later, April to September, I'm comfortably running a 10-kilometer. So we went to Solo Lake and we decided to go running one day. And my pace for the 10-kilometer run was 5 minutes and 51 seconds per kilometer. So if you compare the 2 paces, my pace for a 10-kilometer was actually faster per kilometer than that of my 2-kilometer run initially. So huge improvement here, right? And September 6th was around 10 days before my half marathon was scheduled. So fast forward all the way to September 18th of 2021. That is my bib, and I'm wearing it right here. We collected our bibs, drove to Calgary, we checked into a hotel, we ate our last supper at this Chinese restaurant, and we got so stuffed. And then we woke up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning the next day, since the half marathon started at 7 a.m., and we got ready. And this is September, and we're in Canada, so it was freezing cold. We were wearing shorts, we weren't wearing like a sweater or anything, so yeah, it was really cold. This picture was taken around 10 minutes before the race began, and I'm posing with my dad. He's also running a half marathon. And my younger brother, he actually is pretty cracked at running, so he's not with us. He's in another division that's faster. So yeah, we're looking pretty snazzy right here. Yeah, we're gonna start the race in around 10 minutes. And then 10 minutes turned to 5 minutes, turned to 3 minutes, turned to 30 seconds, and then boom, the race began. Kilometer 0. We fired the starting gun, and then we started running. And you can see I'm running with my dad. And it's also important to note that around the first kilometer, my knee started hurting. And this was nothing special. In the previous runs that I went on, like I kind of ran so much that my knee was like kind of busted. So when I was running here, my knee was hurting like really bad. So around kilometer when I noticed it, and then I told my dad, hey, I think my knees are hurting. Like, and then my dad kind of slowed his pace down to my pace, and he decided to stick with me. At least temporarily stick with me. So, at around kilometer 6, one really awesome thing about the Calgary Marathon is the view. So you can see how there's the Calgary skyline, big blue skies, but there's actually one thing that is kind of missing this photo. Where's my dad? Well, he decided to ditch me because I was too slow. So you can see my dad just jogging his way into the Calgarian sunrise, and yep, I was alone for the next 2 hours of the half marathon. And half marathons are freaking long, man. 2 hours feels like forever, but at least I was listening to music, so the time went a little bit faster. So yeah, I got ditched. Now I was alone. At around kilometer 11, my knee was like really hurting, man. Like the Calgary Marathon route was kind of like a huge loop. So around kilometer 11, we came back to the start line, and this is where my family took these photos of me. I was about to say us, but there is no us here since my dad and my brother already ditched me. And one thing that the organizers did that were genius was they had these cowbells, and they bought a load of cowbells, and then they just gave random people on the streets cowbells, all right? There's like, oh, here, have a cowbell, you have a cowbell, and then, you know, they have a cowbell, and then what are they gonna do? Well, they're gonna cheer on the marathon runners, right? So as I'm running, I'm like, oh, I can't keep going, like there's no way my knee won't hold it. And then I hear the little ding of the cowbells, and I'm like, okay, I can't stop right now, right? I can't let these spectators down. So I'm just like, all right, just maybe 400 more meters. And then when I reach the 400 meter mark, there's another set of people with cowbells ringing, and then I keep pushing myself. So I was about to quit so many times, but there were these people with these cowbells and these signs that are like, ooh, you can keep going, and they actually call us by our names since our names are on our bibs. So like, let's go, Cheney, Cheney. They almost never got my name right, so yeah. And one other thing that was really inspirational was, I'm an Asian Canadian, and there were a lot of Asian Canadians in Calgary, and they were watching us race. And there were also a lot of kids as well. And I felt like, since I'm Asian Canadian and we don't usually do a lot of running sports, right? We do like badminton, maybe swimming, but we don't really do running. And there were not a lot of Asian Canadians here. There were all the usual like, yeah, white people, yeah, just people that are not Asian, or not Chinese at least. And yeah, I saw all of these Asian Canadian or Chinese Canadian kids and adults standing by the side and they're just watching us. And then, you know, I would be a very rare occasion for them to see another Chinese Canadian. And I felt like, you know, I'm sort of representing them, and I can't let them down. I can't start walking and let my race down. So that was one thing. And then there were a lot of kids as well, and some kids would reach out their hands to, you know, high five, and then I'd run, and then I like, you know, high five 5 kids at once. That was just really awesome, man. Yeah, kids can't let them down either, right? If I start walking, they'll be like, oh, he's a loser or something. So yeah, gotta act as inspiration for these people, for them to maybe try running or try sports in their future. So yeah, that was definitely one thing. Yeah, one thing to mention is that there is also a lot of cameramen here. And then the cameras they take are public to the whole world. So, you know, when I saw a cameraman, if I was walking, I would start running again. And if I was running, I wouldn't start walking because I didn't want them to see me walk. So a lot of motivating factors here for me to not stop running. Around kilometer 17, this is a really interesting story. My leg was hurting so bad that I had to run, walk, run, walk, run, walk. It was just, the cramps were so bad, sometimes I couldn't even move my legs. So I was like Terry Foxing it the whole way, because my right leg was the one that was busted. And in this photo, there's an aid station, so all the people at the back there, those are the people that are handing out drinks, handing out snacks for our runners to eat. But in front of that, there's this red thing, and in case you didn't know, it's called the porta potty. And a half marathon is freaking long. It's more than 2 hours, and I probably had something for breakfast that day, but I had to use the bathroom, and it was number 2, right? So I went in there and I sat down. Now, the problem wasn't sitting down, right? So when you sit down, you also have to get back up. That was the problem. Now, my leg was so damaged and so crippled that I spent 20 minutes in there. And I sent a text to my parents being like, I sent it in Chinese, but it was along the lines of, I'm dead. And then my mom was like, where are you? And I didn't respond, so she probably got freaked out. But I spent 20 minutes in there. I probably spent maybe 5 minutes doing my business, and then spent 15 minutes trying to get back up. There were no handles in the porta potty. So, okay, I eventually got back out, but it was like a time machine. When I first went in, there was still a lot of people. If you look at the previous slide, there's a lot of people with me. So when I went into the porta potty, there were a lot of people around me as well. I spent 20 minutes in there, I came out, there's nobody left. As you can see in this photo, there's like one runner in the distance. So yeah, it was like a time machine for me. And when I came out, there was nobody, and I kind of just had to walk and jog on my own for the rest of the journey. Around kilometer 20, so the half marathon is 21.1 kilometers long. So I was around a kilometer away from finishing. You can see how there's not a lot of people, and we're all kind of walking since we're just so tired. And this was the final stretch. So when I turned the corner to face the finish line, I put in all my last drops of energy and just started running as fast as I could. And I passed 3 people, and the crowd started cheering so loud for me, except I realized it wasn't for me. If you look closely, the guy that is 2 places behind me, his bib was actually red, and mine is blue, indicating I'm running a half marathon. A red bib means he's running a full marathon. Now, a full marathon in the time of my half marathon is pretty darn good. So I realized that the audience was actually cheering for him, not for me, but I like to believe that it was for me anyway. But one final stride, and I crossed the finish line. And that marked all the effort I put in the previous 5 months, training myself to get better at running. And at that moment, I didn't care about anything. My knee hurt, but it didn't really hurt because all I could focus on was, wow, I did it. I did the half marathon. I could never have imagined myself running 20 kilometers. So how does this relate back to my initial topic of success? Was my half marathon attempt successful? Well, the average time for a guy running a half marathon in my age category is 2 hours. So if you took my time of 2 hours and 41 minutes, then I'm an absolute failure. But despite my coming in the last places of the half marathon, my improvement is definitely I am still very proud of. So how does this relate to being successful? And this is the photo that we took after the marathon, my family. Well, there actually are 2 definitions of success. There is society's definition of success, and there is your own personal definition of success. So we'll start off with society's definition. Society's definition of success is you gotta be rich, you gotta be famous, you gotta have a 95% average in school, get into a good university. You have to run a half marathon in under 2 hours. So the problem with these criteria is that, first of all, it's just wrong. And it doesn't consider everybody's unique circumstances. And not everyone can achieve these things. I could try so hard, and I may never be able to break a 2-hour mark for a half marathon. But obviously, you shouldn't tell yourself that. You should always try your best. But some people, even if they do try their best, they can never achieve these things. Everybody is different, and that is what is wrong with society's definition of success. And yeah, this definition of success, we can continually tell our younger generation that we have to do these things. And this is why we destroy so many people's confidence and ambition by telling them that there is a predefined path. You have to be a doctor to be successful. You have to have a lot of money to be successful. Well, that is just wrong. And we destroy a lot of people's confidence and ambition by doing so. It's really detrimental to our society, really. And the second definition of success is your personal definition. You define what success means to you. To me, success is about pushing yourself to your limits, setting goals, and doing your best to achieve them. With my definition, simply the act of finishing my half marathon makes me successful, regardless of my time. In school, a 95% average does not mean you're necessarily better than someone with an 80% average. Just like how in a marathon or running, success isn't defined by your finishing time. There are just so many factors to consider when basing a student's success that it is unfair to just look at grades alone. Everybody is different. And another example is actually TED Talks. For a lot of presenters, simply gathering the courage to stand up here in the spotlight in front of an audience is an ordeal, and therefore a great accomplishment if they can achieve that. And despite all these things, it still is important to me to push myself to my limits and to remember that even though I did achieve my goal of running a half marathon, that is not the last goal that I will ever achieve. It doesn't mean that you should stop pushing yourself if you have achieved this goal, right? I finished a half marathon. Does that mean I will stop running because I achieved my goal? No. No, absolutely not. You will continue to set goals for yourself until the end of time. So, yeah. Just this last weekend, actually, me and my brother have attempted a full marathon. So this is May 29th, 2022, around more than a half year later than my half marathon, and I've been training on and off kind of, but we decided to be adventurous and do a full marathon, and this was in Calgary just last weekend. In this first photo with me and my dad, he still has a blue bib because he's kind of old and doesn't want to be too adventurous anymore, so he's doing a half marathon. But me and my brother in the other picture, we're doing the full marathon, which is 42.2 kilometers, which is absolutely incredible. And this just shows that I'm constantly pushing myself to my limits and embodying my definition of success. But I'm afraid the full marathon is a story for another time. So, a scrawny grade 11 kid who could barely finish a 2-kilometer run has grown to finish a 42.2 kilometer marathon, which is more than 20 times the distance he initially ran. As a fellow human being, if my jaded grade 11 self could muster the motivation and courage to push myself to my limits, to challenge a full marathon, or even a half marathon, then I sincerely believe that everyone in this room can do that too. Now, before I wrap up my presentation, I want everyone to ask themselves 2 questions. Firstly, what does success mean to you? And second of all, what makes you successful? Thank you.